Hello, everybody, and welcome. Today is Monday, August 3rd, 2020, and we are getting ready to begin our review of the book, People of the Lie. This is a highly anticipated book review series, highly requested, so I look forward to getting started on this with you. Going to wait just a few seconds for folks to get to the room. Hi to everyone who's already in the chat. Yes, they are. So sit tight. We'll get started in just a moment. Welcome to everybody as you fill into the room. If this is your first time hearing about all of this, which would not be surprising considering I think maybe 10% of my subscribers get my notifications, but that's another discussion. We are preparing to review a book called People of the Lie. This book has been on my radar since this channel started, and I'm so happy I finally got a chance to read it. I'm actually not done. I still have about 10 pages or so, maybe 20 left, but I am finished with the first few chapters. So we're going to go ahead and get started because I can't wait anymore. I agree. It is a great book. Welcome, everybody. Just a few more seconds and we'll get started up here. Thanks for joining. If you're new to the channel, you might be aware that I do have a small funny farm going on over here. So if you hear background noises, screeches, sudden squeals, barks, just disregard, okay? We're just going to work through it. They generally calm down about 30 minutes into the show. Oh, another first timer. Hi, welcome to the live stream. I'm glad this will be your first one. How's everyone doing? We've had a stressful couple of months, really, but last few days, I suppose. Hope you guys are all doing well. So I won't stall any longer. We'll go ahead and get started right away. So welcome to everybody. We're getting ready to review the book, People of the Lie. So the first thing I want to do before we get into the review is I want to give a few disclaimers. I am very, very aware. The first disclaimer is this. I am very aware that a lot of people do not believe in the spirit realm. They don't believe in spirituality. They don't believe in God, universe, any of those things. And I completely respect you and your point of view. But I do want to let you know that this entire book essentially revolves around those themes and those concepts. So if that's something that you're not comfortable with, you don't like, this would be your moment to exit. However, you are more than welcome to stay. I would love for you to stay and just entertain the idea. And if you're not entertained or you're not convinced, then go back to what you believe. But primarily, this disclaimer is to let you know that, because I can't tell you how many people on videos such as on narcissist demonic possession will leave comments that say things like, oh, I liked you so much until you got into all this God stuff. So I'm here to let you know that we're getting ready to get into all this God stuff, okay? If that's not your cup of tea, come back when it is, okay? So that's the first disclaimer. And I guess along with that disclaimer, also making the very real assumption that God in the spirit realm is real. So we're operating off that throughout this whole review. I won't be waffling back and forth between the two belief systems, okay? Second, the second disclaimer is this. This book and this content has the potential to be very psychologically triggering. For some, it's not. Some people have read it and they said it wasn't that bad. For others, they read it and just kind of had to put it down and walk away from it for a little bit. But I want to let you know that right up front, especially if you've never read it, or if you'll be listening to this live stream and have no idea what any of this is about, I do want to let you know that this content has that potential to be very psychologically triggering. And if that turns out to be the case, yes, I would like to let you know that BetterHelp has partnered with my channel. We've had a partnership for a few months now. And if you find that you just need to talk to somebody who's licensed and want to get some of this stuff out of your head, this is an option for you, okay? So you can follow the link on your screen. If you're listening, that link is https://betterhelp.com/permission to exist, okay? That said, why don't we go ahead and get started on our book review? Hello to everybody in the chat. Welcome. We've been waiting. We have been waiting. I've been waiting. I've been so excited, y'all, to get started on this and talk about this with you guys. So just a little bit of background on the book. This book was written in 1983 by Dr. M. Scott Peck. It is a national best-selling book that continues to receive positive reviews to this day. As I mentioned earlier, this book first came to my attention back in 2016. When I started this channel, people started recommending this book right away. But I did not read it until this year, 2020. So I'm very excited to review this with you and compare some of the themes and the topics that we've discussed on this channel to the book and what he's saying and what he's actually laying out in the book. There's so many different parallels. So stay tuned to this series. It's going to be a really good one. And I promise it should not take a year to complete. Okay. My goal is 3 months, but if I'm being realistic, probably 6, but I'm really going to aim for 3 months. I don't want to drag it out too long. Okay. Now, I also want to say this about the book, because this channel primarily deals with the subject of narcissism. Those who've been around for a while, you guys know that. Now, in the book, he acknowledges very heavily that narcissism is part of evil. My particular position is that the evil he's describing is narcissism, but I'm getting way ahead of myself. But I just wanted to put that out there up front. I think what he's describing is narcissism, the thing that we've been talking about all this time. So, and one more thing I want to say. So the book launches in a very kind of an unusual way. In a way, it's kind of slow to launch, if that makes sense. I'm glad I stuck with it because initially I was like, is the whole book going to be like this? So, and the reason I even bring that up at all is because this review series is going to kind of reflect that awkward launch to the book, because part of what took me a while to even put this together was trying to sort the thoughts in a way that made sense. Because initially, the book it's odd how he sets it up. So my review initially might seem a little cumbersome, and that's because I found it cumbersome to kind of prop it all up, okay? So I just hope you find value in the way that it is laid out. It's not a perfect layout. I'm trying to do it a little bit differently than I did my last book review, but it might just come down to me going quote by quote. If that ends up being easier, we'll see. So forgive me if it seems awkward and cumbersome, but I promise you it'll level out because the book levels out and it starts to get very heavy hitting after a couple of pages. After really like the first 2 chapters is really where it starts to pick up. So you'll see that reflected in the slides, okay? So with that said, let's go ahead and get started, you guys. Welcome to everybody in the chat. Slow launching, right? Okay, good. All right. So I'm glad I'm not the only one who feels that way. I was like, okay, well, I'm going to stick with this because I have faith that this is going somewhere. And it was. So why don't we go ahead and get started with our book review, you guys? People of the Lie. The battle to heal human evil always begins at home. Okay. So this is in the initial introductory pages of the book. He mentions his thesis many times throughout the book. So I'll go ahead and mention it here for the first time, but it does re-arise. And it's interesting because it's like, as I was reading it, I was like, dang, this is like Permission to Exist 1983. And of course, I'm not taking credit for these ideas for people who cannot hear my humor or my sarcasm. All I'm saying is that as I was reading it, I was like, dang, I've said the same thing before. I've said the same thing. I believe the same thing. So it's like I was writing to me from the future, from the past. Anyway, it's a joke, laugh, haha. Okay. But I have said this before. So he said, it is the principal thesis of this work that these people, as well as human evil in general, need to be studied scientifically. Have I not said multiple times on this channel, science doesn't have a cure for this yet. This is worthy of study. They need to spend more time on this. They need to really study this. I've said similar things. And again, not taking credit for the idea. It's just nice to see that, okay, clearly I was onto something because someone from 1983 was saying the same thing or may have said it first, whatever. Well, anyway, you guys get my point. My point is, for a long time now, people have known that something is going on here that we need to no longer ignore. And people are very quick to write off evil and the spirit realm. And we very quickly want to assign medical diagnoses to things that are sometimes simply unexplainable. You can't explain it. And so I think we're at a point now, especially with everything we've been going through lately, that we really need to take the time to focus on this because it's been operating in the background, almost like termites in a house, quietly, unassumingly. And then one day the top floor just caves in and no one knows what happened. Well, the termites have been operating the whole time, but they went without detection because no one would even think to look for them, you see? So no one was checking for them. And then boom, the whole top floor of the house caves in because of the termites. So this is something that we do need to study scientifically, take it more seriously. And his position essentially is that the scientific community has kind of ignored and overlooked and thrown out evil as a real thing. So they want to assign some sort of tangible diagnosis to the problem that's occurring. And sometimes there may not be something that we can explain with math and numbers yet, or ever potentially. So that's kind of one of his major positions. And I'm 100% in alignment with that. They don't know what's going on yet. That's why we do our Advice from the Expert series, is to highlight how the people who are supposed to be experts in this field seem to have a very shallow understanding of what's really going on and of what people are really going through dealing with evil, narcissistic individuals. Oh, there's so much, you guys. There's so much. So let's continue. Welcome. If you're just joining, welcome. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the review series. So this is on page 11, and this is still part of the intro. So the point of me bringing this quote out is to kind of illustrate the point that we brought out on this channel before of how narcissists in particular cannot handle feedback and self-reflection. So this he was writing in regard to a letter that a nun had written, Saint Teresa of Lisieux. She wrote, "If you are willing to serenely bear the trial of being displeasing to yourself, then you will be a pleasant place for Jesus to shelter. There are hundreds of thousands who go to Christian churches every Sunday who are not in the least bit willing to be displeasing to themselves, serenely or otherwise, and who are not, therefore, for Jesus a pleasant place of shelter." Okay, so essentially what this means, and the point of this particular quote, is that in order for you to be a place or a person that the Holy Spirit would even want to be around, you've got to be the type of person who is willing to look at yourself, look within, and feel uncomfortable or feel bad about something that happened or that you did. And I brought this up a couple live streams ago, and people were saying, no, feeling shame is bad, and it's the root of a lot of different mental disorders. And I hear what you're saying, but I think the way that I mean it is in the similar way that this quote is putting forth, which is essentially, when you do something bad on purpose or accidentally, consciously, unconsciously, you come to the awareness that you've done something wrong. You are supposed to be able to feel that, mainly so you don't do it again. Now, you're not supposed to beat yourself up and, you're not supposed to destroy yourself over the shame. The shame is intended to be something avoidant, to make you not want to do it again. And in doing so, you become a pleasant person in a pleasant place, because essentially what you're able to do is root out those things that are displeasing about you. So let's assume we're all born with flowers and weeds, right? As we get older, it's our job to be able to identify the flowers and identify the weeds. And it's our job to be able to pluck our own weeds. Do you understand? So Jesus in this particular quote, but you could swap Jesus out with other people, family, friends, loved ones, a pleasant place for people, for family to shelter, for friends to shelter, for others to shelter, like a friendly, nice garden. And the assumption is nobody is born with all flowers and nobody is born with all weeds. Excuse me, we could get into a deeper conversation about that on wheat and tares, but we're just going to stick with this analogy, okay? The assumption is nobody is born with all of either. But what you tend to, or what you don't tend to, is what flourishes. So to continue the analogy, so as you start to mature and you start to develop that sense of right and wrong, you tend to pluck out your weeds and you water your flowers. So as a result, you have a very, very pleasant garden, very, very few weeds, if any, and very, very beautiful, healthy flowers, versus a person who never waters their flowers and lets their weeds grow out of control. So now their garden is not pleasant. There's very few flowers, if any. The weeds are out of control. We'll throw some fruit in there. Let's throw some fruit trees in there just to make the analogy stick. So you're born with flowers and fruit trees and weeds, okay? So there's no apple trees. There's nothing to eat. It's nothing but thorns, thorny bushes, and weeds overgrown everywhere because they never took care of their flowers and they never plucked their weeds. So essentially, this is what this quote is saying. And this is what I'm saying when I talk about how narcissists absolutely refuse to pluck their weeds. But the thing about it is they won't take care of their flowers either, typically. They refuse to look at their garden at all. And that's the problem. And generally the weeds win, right? If I'm not mistaken, the weeds will generally take over. If you do nothing, like if you plant flowers and weeds, won't the weeds eventually completely destroy the flowers? I'll have to look that up. So that's what this is saying. And then I thought this was interesting. It was kind of shade from the 80s. There are hundreds of thousands who go to Christian churches every Sunday who are not in the least bit willing to be displeasing to themselves, serenely or otherwise, and who are not therefore for Jesus a pleasant place of shelter. So in other words, these are going to be your Christians, your religious types who couldn't take feedback or couldn't take criticism if they were being paid to do so. They're going to run away from it. They're going to ignore it. They're going to act like it's not happening. They're going to rebuke you. And that's why many of these churches haven't changed in 50 years, 30 years, 40 years, because they cannot stand to be displeasing to themselves. Because the thing about it is this, If you want a really successful life, a truly successful life, you have to be able to be your own best cheerleader and your own best critic. Okay? I would like to say that I think one of my flowers, you could say, is that it's hard to hurt my feelings because nobody criticizes myself more than I do. Now, hearing that, some of you will go, oh, PTE, don't be so hard on yourself. And the thing is, I could probably lighten up a little bit. I probably could, but the end results speak for themselves. Those who have watched the channel kind of evolve over time, that comes from heavy self-critique and heavy self-criticism. Watching the videos back and going, oh, ooh, I don't like that. That was displeasing to me. So I'm going to try not to do that in the future because I found that displeasing. So the ability to be displeasing to yourself. So when the trolls come through, it's like, oh, honey, we've already covered that in my head. What else you got? You got something new for me? That's been addressed. So, but I apply it to all areas of my life, though. Now, in many ways, it doesn't necessarily make for the world's happiest person because you're always in a constant state of awareness of where you are versus where you magically and delusionally want to be. And I'm not saying you shouldn't have vision. The reason you know where you are is because you have the vision. So you say, that this current state does not align with my vision. So I know what steps I need to take to make my current state align with that vision. Versus the people who will simply lie to themselves and say, I'm already in the vision. No, you're not. You're not, boo-boo. Your current state is not the vision. You have a few more steps to take. So I say all this to say, this is all part of being displeasing to yourself. Once you're willing to be displeasing to yourself, you're able to make the changes you need to make to become a better person. That's all. So moving on, welcome to everybody in the chat. Thank you for joining. I appreciate you so much. So the theme of this particular stream, I should have renamed it. I will rename it after the stream is over, is acknowledging evil. So one of the very first videos I did on this channel is called How a Narcissist Grows. You Must Believe in the Boogeyman. Okay. And the spirit behind that particular video from 2016 was that people in our society, and I had no idea to what degree at the time, I feel like I have a better idea now, really don't want to believe that bad people exist. We've got a million different excuses for what we would call bad people in our society. Excuse me, they've been traumatized. Oh, they had a rough childhood. Oh, they had narcissistic parents themselves. You know, the laundry list goes on. And my position has always been that that is no excuse to then go out and harm others. It doesn't give you a license to do so. And as a matter of fact, should make you less likely to do so, not more likely. But people like to use it as a free pass. Now, there are people who are fence walkers who've just never been shown a different way. But as soon as you're shown a different way and you choose the most destructive way, okay, then you're probably a boogeyman or a woman. Okay. Now, there's a great quote in this book, People of the Lie, on page 47. I told you we'd be jumping around a little bit, but roll with me, that I really feel like sums up the spirit of this and acknowledging evil. It says, one is left with the impression that truly evil human beings were over there and back then. The reader is led to believe that real evil does not have anything to do with the mother of three next door or the deacon in the church down the street. Exactly. That's exactly my point. In our minds, oh, evil people were back in the day. That's medieval times. You know, they didn't have technology, so they didn't know any better, or they were Neanderthals, you know, or evil people, that was they're over there. They're not close here. They're not close to us. They don't exist. But like I've told you many times, most criminals are free, walking around free, just as free. Hold on one second, you guys. Free as a bird. So part that plays into this overall idea. So we like to think the criminals are over there, meaning, oh, they're all arrested and in jail. And all the free people are the good people. But think about all the people who have yet to be arrested, who will come to light like in the next year or two, who are walking around right now. So a lot of criminals are actually free. So we, though, like to believe that people are redeemable, and if they just change their attitude, they'll have better outcomes and better outlooks. And if we want to stay safe, and if we really want to start fixing this little problem of ours, then we have to acknowledge that these people actually exist in all races, genders, creeds, cultures, and denominations. Okay? It might come out in different ways, but they are everywhere. All right. So that said, let's move into chapter 1. Now, I hope this does not disappoint anybody, but I really don't have a lot to say about chapter 1. Okay. It seems like I would, right? Chapter 1, the man who made a pact with the devil. You would think that there'd be a lot to say about something like this, right? Well, really what this is the story of a guy who was severely struggling with OCD. And essentially, to make his OCD stop, he made a pact in his mind with the devil. Okay. So after I read this chapter, I was like, I really hope this book starts to pick up speed. Because it's really one of those, there's a distinct literary term for this type of writing. I think this might be the storytelling style. And believe it or not, you guys, I actually hate the storytelling style. I don't know why. I do not know why. I cannot stand the storytelling style in books. Just tell me the facts. Tell me what it is, But that's neither here nor there. I'm just giving you an aside. But chapter 1 is essentially one big storytelling chapter. And I see how he connected it later. So here's what I will say about this chapter. So one of the main takeaways from this was that the author was trying to get the patient, George, to see that him selling out to the devil in his head essentially was him selling out, basically. So this quote comes from page 32. And it's talking about how people deal with stress. And I'd love your thoughts on this chapter for those who read it. Maybe you'll have more to say about it than me, and I'll pick it up in the after show. But it says the question is not duress. The question is how people deal with duress. Some withstand it and overcome it, ennobled. Some break and sell out. And he essentially told George, you sold out by making this deal with the devil in your head, right? So I kind of get the point. And then, so jumping around again, this comes from page 47. The overall point of chapter 1 is that George had not yet become evil, but he was at the turning point of doing so. His dealing with the devil represented the moral turning point of his life. Had he not renounced the pact, he would have eventually become evil. So here's where I'm going to land. I'm not focused on George or his OCD or anything like that, or even the therapist's interpretation of it. I thought this was pretty major. So this turning point, I feel, presents itself often, in our lives and throughout our lives. And I'm pretty sure I've said this before in the corporate cult series, but many people have sold out in one way or another long time ago to their jobs or their corporation or to something. They sold out a long time ago. And whether or not they realized it, that was a moral turning point for them. So this really made me kind of reflect on my own life. And I was like, dang, girl, you don't sell out easily or at all. And so I had to kind of reflect on my jobs and kind of reflect on the different things they had asked me to do on these different jobs. And as soon as it became an ethical or moral issue, even one that doesn't have like legal ramifications necessarily. So like I told you the story of how I bumped heads with the trainer who felt the best approach to punish 4 people in a group of 30 adults was to shuffle all their seats around in a training class. And I told you how I was against it and I stood up against it and I spoke out against it and how she and I essentially bumped heads the rest of the year because that was a turning point for me. Now, if I had really wanted to keep that job, the best thing for me to have done would have been for me to fall in line with her, even though I disagreed and said, yep, your seat's over there now. Your seat's over there now. Yeah, sorry. Ooh, sorry. Yep, your seat's over there now. And see the discomfort and the anger and the disappointment on the faces of all these adults who trusted us up until this point. Then they pop in on a Monday morning and their seats are shuffled to punish 4 people. So even though I could not stop it because it was her class, I still was adamantly against it and tried so hard to convince this woman not to do that to these people. And the mood and the energy was off the rest of that training class for the couple of weeks that were left, because it was just like, wow, you drawn a line in the sand. So these are the little turning points that we're faced with in day to day. Of course, obviously I use careers and jobs as everyday examples, but what are other ways that we could possibly be selling out these little moral turning points? And he gets into this later on in the book, but it's turning points like these that continue to lead us down a path toward evil. Because essentially, once you start selling out in little ways, it's not long before you start selling out in big ways. It's not long. It's like a staircase. You can't go from the bottom step to the top step all in one reach. There are little steps in between. So it starts with these initial little steps, and eventually, before you know it, you walk the staircase to evil, and you're all the way at the top step and not sure how you got there. It's from these little ways that we sell out. So for example, this will be current and bring this current to what we're going through today. You all know how I feel about everything going on with the global health situation. There are a lot of companies right now who are getting ready to force their employees to go back to work. That's without the proper procedures or supplies in place to do so. Okay. Not talking about those companies that have done everything they can to protect their employees and their customers. I'm talking about those companies who have not and are still demanding the return. That's a turning point. That's a turning point, a moral turning point. Do you put the wants, wishes, and needs of this corporation ahead of your own life and health and your family's life and health? Or do you put your life and health above the needs of this soulless corporation? It's just one example. It's a turning point. So we're faced with these multiple times throughout the course of our lives. And the more often we sell out under duress, the easier it is to eventually sell out completely. Excuse me. So people often talk about so-and-so sold their soul, right? Sold their soul to the devil. And I think people picture like a ritual and a contract and pricking the end of your finger and signing that contract. And that's all very theatric. But in many ways, this is what selling your soul really is. I told you guys, when you establish boundaries, When you stand up for yourself and speak up for yourself, you are going to get in so much trouble. It's a rough life to live. It's not easy. Protecting your soul is not easy. And you're often going to find yourself on the other side of the fence, looking at all the people supposedly living happy lives, but who've all completely sold out. So it's not an easy walk to take, but it's worthwhile because your dignity is intact at the end of the day. So let's continue. So we are going to go on to now chapter 2. So again, I apologize if you wanted me to speak more on chapter 1, but that's really all I have to say. I thought it was a great illustration of the turning point and how some of us will sell out under pressure. Others will absolutely refuse to sell out and face the consequences. So that could be taken a million different directions. So we're just going to keep marching forward. Okay. Welcome to everybody in the chat. I appreciate you being here. So now I do want to say this about chapter 2. I'm going to cut this chapter in half. So I know some of you were waiting to talk about the story of Bobby and his parents, but here's the thing. In my opinion, that's kind of where the book actually starts to take off a little bit. Where is that page? Where are you? Around page 47 is where things really start to intensify. So like it's literally the difference between a live stream that would end up being an hour and a live stream that would end up being like 3 hours. So what I want to do is I'm going to cut this chapter in half. The next review, we're going to pick up on the case of Bobby and his parents. Okay. So I'm sorry if you were waiting for that, but I promise you that's where we're going to pick up. And that live stream, we're just going to spend the whole live stream on that, on the rest of chapter 2, because it's insanely intense. There's highlighter everywhere. So, and then we'll just keep going from there. Okay. So thank you guys for your understanding and your patience. Also, if you guys are interested in me starting a thread on the community tab that's strictly devoted to this book, and that people who want to continue the conversation there, who don't want to keep coming back to the video, let me know. I'll do that. If you're not interested in that, I won't do that. So just let me know, because I feel like it has the potential to stimulate a lot of conversation. Anyway, chapter 2, Toward a Psychology of Evil. The problem of evil is a very big mystery indeed. Okay. So going back to his main thesis, he really talks about this quite a bit, the need for evil to be studied. So the question becomes, why bother studying evil? Now, I've gotten this comment a lot on different videos, different times. People will leave the comment, why do you guys even bother thinking about narcissists at all? Just go live your life. Why do you guys talk about narcissists so much? Just forget about it and move on. You know, basically, why would we devote this much time, effort, and energy to this topic? I mean, it's not a pleasant topic. I told you I want to start my baking channel, Baking with PTE. You know, that's pleasant. That's soothing to the soul. But these are not necessarily pleasant and soothing topics. So why bother? I thought he gave some really good reasons for why we should do this at all. Number one, he said, uprooting the evil in the fields that we know, so that those who live after may have a clean earth to till. So here's how I kind of feel about this, and I'm relatively passionate about it. So you all know I don't have children. I'm in my late 30s. Well, I wouldn't say late yet, but I only have a few more years left in my 30s, and I'll be 40. So yes, I know that, quote unquote, the clock is ticking. But here's the thing. For me to consciously bring a child into this world as is right now, to me, for me, I'm not speaking for anyone else. I'm only speaking for me. For me personally, would be so unconscionable. And here's why. Because I recognize the present evil that's in the world, because it does not seem to be getting any better, because humanity seems to be downgrading and not upgrading. And I would have to think about things like, who would my child's generation be? My children's generation would be the kids being born right now. So do I really want my children to grow up, number one, in this generation, number two, in this climate, number three, in this country? Hold on. Where we have politicians who wouldn't know what the right thing to do would be if somebody were paying them to do it, and they are getting paid to do it and they can't figure it out. Like, I just don't like it. I don't like the environment. And I feel like my child would look at me and say, Mom, you saw how messed up the world was when you were a young adult. Why did you bring me here? Why? Why would you do this to me? I can honestly say, so I feel, well, my mother was hesitant. She didn't want to have kids for this very reason. She was concerned about the direction of the planet, right? But something inspired her to do so. And here I am. So, hey guys. But, and she said it's the best thing she ever did. And I believe her when she says that. But I feel like when my mother conceived me, things were a little bit more hopeful at the time. And I speak about this often on this channel, how I feel like back in the 80s, things seemed like we were going in the right direction. Things were evolving, getting better. It seemed like the world was improving. You see what I mean? So I could see she had a stable job. My dad had a stable job. We lived in a decent neighborhood. So I could see why she thought this is a good gamble. You see what I mean? Versus me, to give birth to a child today where obtaining a home is next to impossible. We're in the middle of a global health crisis that governments all around the world, well, not all around the world, I take that back, that this particular government has uniquely failed at managing. We're still dealing with some of the same old problems that we've been dealing with for decades, can't seem to get rid of them. So to consciously bring a child into that situation, hoping they'll have a better future, long math is not showing that. Okay. So I don't say that, and to all you new moms out there and moms, I hope you're not offended by me saying that. I'm just needing to speak from the heart right now. That's just how I feel. And it's all in relation to this quote: uprooting the evil in the fields that we know, so that those who live after may have a clean earth to till. In other words, to answer the question, why bother studying this and talking about this at all? So we can make it better for our kids. I have a window. I could still have them. I have a window. But if we don't solve this, and if we don't try to start turning the tide on some of these issues, oh, well, I just missed that particular boat in this life. Maybe I'll adopt, maybe. But I feel that we did not do an adequate enough job to uproot the evil in the fields of the past, so that those today in 2020 could have clean earth to till. Imagine if we had been uprooting evil 20 years ago. 30 years ago, uprooting that evil, pulling it out. That's why I'm very pro cancel culture. You guys know that. Some of you are very upset with me about my position. But my position is essentially this: no, we shouldn't just run off a cliff when someone is accused without giving them a trial first, and then just canceling them without a trial. No, that's not fair. But once we see a well-documented pattern, once there is a trial, at some point we have to say, okay, this is one of the evils we don't want in our earth. We are plucking it, not the person, the behavior, the attitude, the mindset. Imagine if we had plucked some of the behaviors and attitudes and mindsets 30 years ago, where we'd be today. We don't pluck our weeds anymore. We leave them there to completely destroy the flowers. That is the point. That has always been the point. So for me to feel comfortable enough to bring children here, we have got to uproot some of this evil. It has to go. It has to go. But as a society, we don't even like to call a weed a weed. You know, everyone, oh, that's not a weed. It's just a different flower. It's a weed. And it's growing and it's taking over the whole garden. It's invasive. It's an invasive species since there's seeds going all over the earth. Since there's seeds being sent all over the earth from China that no one knows where they're coming from, and they're telling people don't plant them because they could be an invasive species, we have allowed an invasive species to take over. And we don't want to pull it up by its root. And as a result, the kids of today, which would be all of us, I don't care how old you are, if you're alive, you're a kid of today. The kids of today are now dealing with all the evils that were never uprooted in the past. This is the uprooting process, and people don't like it. Especially those who keep planting the evil, they don't like it. We're in the middle of an uprooting process right now. So, you know, I thought this was very important. So this is one of the reasons we have to study and talk about it, because the more you ignore it, the more it just continues to grow before it has taken over your whole entire garden. Now you have no food and no flowers. Okay. Yeah, the seeds of destruction. Exactly. All right, let's keep going. So why else do we need to bother to study evil or even talk about it at all? Once again, he puts forth his thesis, because we do not yet have a body of scientific knowledge about human evil deserving of being called a psychology. So again, a little bit more shade from the 80s. I like it. And we still really don't. Yes, we know about our cluster Bs. We know about them, sociopaths, narcissists, psychopaths. I feel we've done a very good job labeling them and describing them. But I feel like what the licensed therapists and psychologists are not doing a very good job of is applying all that knowledge, applying it. Like transferring all that academic knowledge to the real world examples that we're seeing. That's what I feel like is missing, because primarily, as we were just talking about, no one wants to call a weed a weed. Oh, you're a good person. You're redeemable. There's hope for you yet. And I mean, that would be a great thing to think. But if that were the case, then how come there's still so many? That therapy can't seem to help. And he touches on that in the book. We'll get into that. How essentially therapists run from these type of people because there's nothing they can do with them. There's nothing modern psychology can do with them. So if nothing else, it's worthy of study, because if they can be helped, let's try. I mean, because they're destroying us and everything else around them. So it's kind of like, do we continue to allow this invasive species to wreak havoc, or do we make an attempt to try to fix it and understand what's really going on? So that's, again, one of his major theses. And then let's see, moving on. Okay, so we're actually going to wrap this content and go into after show after this quote. And we're going to pick up with the heavy hitting stuff next time. Okay. So this was just a nice warm up introduction to this whole series, but good science and good psychology cannot be narrow minded. All right. And I really resonated with this quote because I feel like that's what makes my channel just a little bit different than others. I acknowledge academia. You know, you all know I'm basically a nerd at heart. But I can also acknowledge the gap between academia and the medical community and what we're all actually out here going through. I feel like if there were truly an in-depth and profound understanding, there should be books available to us that could solve problems. We shouldn't have quite as many problems as we do. Many problems are super solvable. The only problems we should be really dealing with are problems that are dealing with like physics. Like we can't overcome a certain law of physics or we can't, we've taken something to its max efficiency and we don't know how to improve it anymore. It's the best it can possibly get. So, but we're far from there. We're still on basics. We're still on building blocks. So, there's a major gap that exists. So one thing I will say positively about YouTube is that I feel like YouTube at least attempts to solve that gap. Not YouTube, the company, content creators who come on talking about this stuff, trying to close the gap between real life experiences and academia, you see, and the medical community. So with that, you guys, we are going to wrap our first People of the Lie review. I know we didn't cover much, but this is just the warm up, just getting everybody ready. For those who haven't gotten their books yet, giving them an opportunity to get their books. If you feel like supporting the channel, there is an affiliate link in the description box below. You can click on that link and give me like a 50 to 75 cent kickback. I'd appreciate that. All right, with that, you guys, we are going to go into after show mode and read through and talk through some of your comments, because I honestly feel like your comments will be better than the content of the book. So give me just 1 second and I'm going to go through your comments, okay? All right, I am back. Hello, welcome everybody. So some of you may not know, but I can't see all of your comments, especially those that came in towards the beginning of the show. StreamYard cuts them off. So I'm starting at the comments that came in around 7:54, which was about a little over 30 minutes ago, okay? So thanks for joining and welcome. Right. It says, our society believes in crazy people, but denies evil when evil is craziness to the max. Exactly. Like, we just don't like to say, wow, that person is pure evil, because it seems like such a final conclusion. But sometimes there is no other conclusion. It's so inexplicable. And for those of you who follow my other channel, I do have another channel called A Deeper PTE. We kind of touched on that in my last live stream, that God doesn't know where evil came from. So that's one of the mysteries of God. Like, did God create evil or did it pop in? And I'm of the opinion that evil popped in on God. It was a surprise, like, whoa, what's that? And it's been a mystery ever since. Wow, interesting. It says, I did a background check on some psychopaths, sociopaths, and not a single record. And you know what? That kind of aligns with, I did a survey a couple years ago. The videos are privated now because nobody watched them, really. No one cared about my little survey. Some of y'all did, though. Shout out to y'all who cared, and shout out to y'all who took the survey. But one of the findings from that survey was that a lot of narcs are like squeaky clean. They don't do drugs. They don't have like criminal records or anything. So it really blindsides the person who's dealing with them. Like, wow, you don't line up with the traditional criminal profile. So that means if you don't line up with the traditional criminal profile, what profile do you line up with? Makes you wonder. Okay, so here's the answer to my question. The question was, do weeds ultimately overtake the garden and kill the flowers? I thought they did, and it's confirmed. It says, yes, weeds with the root system, weeds have a root system that strangles a flower's root and kills the flower. So you see, so they cannot coexist for very long. Temporarily, sure, but ultimately the weeds kill the flowers. And our unwillingness to weed out the evil of the past is slowly killing the flowers, is it not? Because here's the thing, and thank you for confirming that. Your life might be going great, right? You might have a great family, great friends, great job, no real complaints, no real issues to speak of. You know, you might have a little money in the bank, live in a decent neighborhood. So with all those things going for you, in your mind, you might think to yourself, well, life's not so bad for me. What is everyone else complaining about? But what you don't realize is, you know, it's not a thing to have an oasis on a trash barge. So, what I mean by that is a trash barge is a giant floating mass of trash in the ocean. Sometimes they're purposely created, other times nature just creates them. They just, all this plastic and trash finds its way to each other and creates this massive floating barge. It's actually a huge problem. But if you have managed to like clean out an acre on that barge and sod it and plant some grass and build up a nice 4 bedroom, 3 bathroom mini mansion with a nice view of the ocean because it is floating, and you have your supplies airdropped in from a helicopter. So you basically live on a 1 acre lot, beautiful house, beautiful grass on a floating trash barge. You're not winning. It's no prize to have a mansion on a trash barge. So those of you who have nice lives, it's not that we're not happy for you. I'm happy for you. I want people to be happy. But you have to understand that your nice life is situated and insulated in the middle of a trash barge or a weed garden, the bad weed garden. So essentially, and the primary reason is because nobody plucked those weeds out, and they've just prospered and grown to now all the flowers are crushed out almost. So you're not winning to have a mansion in the middle of a weed field, a bad weed field. You have to specify. Let's see here. This is the reality that people don't want to contend with. People don't want to contend with the fact that some people are simply beyond redemption. One of my favorite sayings, I don't think I've ever really shared it with you guys before, but one of my favorite sayings is some people don't respond to kindness. And that was proven to me when I was a school teacher. Some people simply do not respond to kindness. It doesn't register anywhere in them. So some people you have to get rough with, unfortunately. And I hate to say it, which is why when people were saying, oh, defund the police and send in de-escalation squads. Honey, listen, sometimes you have to get rough with people. I'm sorry, you do. And a de-escalation squad is probably going to be very kind. And kindness has failed up until that point, don't you think? Reason and reasonableness and being kind and trying to appeal to the greater person has failed, don't you think? But I digress. Yes, some people are, and that's the unfortunate reality. Let's see here. Yeah, I thought so too. Says, I thought the George device was a little awkward. Yeah, like I promise you guys, I'm so proud of myself because normally after reading something like that, I'm like, I typically won't finish a book. So I'm like, if this whole book is going to be like this, I'm out. But I'm so glad I stuck with it because people swore by it. So yeah, it was a little awkward, but it was the 80s. We'll forgive them, you know, even though the better literature is really from the past. So whatever. Let's see here. Let's see. Right. It says they live inside the illusion. You have to buy into it to get along, and you can't attempt to break it even for their own benefit. Right. And this author would call what you call the illusion, this author would call that the lie. This is the lie. People of the lie. They live inside the lie. You have to buy into it to get along, and you can't attempt to break it even for their own benefit. Exactly. Try to break that illusion if you want to. You're going to be met with hellfire, as we have seen as of recent. So that illusion is strong. It's hard. It's hardened. It gets worse over time. He does talk about that. So we'll be discussing that. And if you don't buy into it or you break it accidentally or on purpose, watch out. You're in so much trouble. Awesome. Some people just got their copies today. Awesome. Let's see. I'm not sure what comment you were responding to. It says, but do you mean our world nowadays? It's the world they desire? Absolutely. This chaos that we're in. See, people want to put everything on like the Illuminati and the secret societies, but people are leaving out all the other narcissists who are not connected to any of those things. You know, like the quote said earlier in the stream, the mother of three next door, the deacon at the church. They're not part of that. They are connected by a divine demonic thread, but we're not going to get into that on this live stream. But in terms of like doing it for a specific group, usually they're just doing it for themselves. So we tend to overlook all the evil that's around us when we try to place it all in this one little, hidden group, clandestine group. Yes, this is the world that is desired by narcissists all over, because it's a world where they don't have to really be accountable for anything. You know what I was thinking about the other day? How much it bothers me that customer service has truly died. And when I talk about customer service, I mean all around. So in the past, I would say like late 90s, maybe early 2000s, you could reach out to a company, you could write them a letter. Email was coming around, but really you could write them a letter, send it in the mail, and they would actually reply to you in a way where you could tell they had read what you wrote, that they had actually read what you wrote, heard your concern, forwarded your concern to whatever. And in the past, like you really felt like heard, you could really, like accountability was still a real thing all around. You know what I mean? For the most part. And now it's like, I feel like we're just dealing with bots everywhere, man. You write to a company and you'll say something very specific like, hi, I ordered this purple dress and the dress I received is clearly green, but the numbers line up. Did I make a mistake? And they'll write something back like, we're so sorry you haven't found satisfaction with our product. Here's a 10% discount. It's like, no, I really wasn't writing for a discount. I was writing because I ordered a purple dress and received a green dress. Is there an issue with the dye? Did something happen in the shipping? Is it just listed wrong on the website? No, they just scoot past all that and just say, we're so sorry you haven't found satisfaction with the product. It's like nobody hears you anymore. So I say all that to say, is this the world they desire? Yes, because it's a world that doesn't really require them to be accountable anymore. Low accountability. Don't have to explain anything. Do anything. Don't have to explain yourself for anything. Let's see. Yep. It says they got possessed. That's when they sold out. Yep. And it was probably one decision that did it. And that started the spiral, which I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. But part of the reason narcissists are impossible to work with and people who are relatively evil are impossible to work with is because they are down a deep spiral of lies. Okay. And when you try to confront them, you have to understand that you're confronting lie number 308. And you would have to work your way backwards to lie number 1 to get this person to change, is essentially what I'm saying. So the same thing with the staircase analogy. So I just said spiral, but we could say staircase. You're trying to confront them at stair number 22 when you would have to start at stair number 1. But getting to stair number 1 requires them walking backwards from stair 22. Do you understand? And who wants to walk backwards down stairs? Nobody. So that's why you're going to get met with hellfire, anger, and rage, because you are trying to undo an elaborate staircase or an elaborate spiral, and in some cases, an elaborate web of lies. Okay? Both lies to other people and lies to themselves, which are the worst ones. The ones that you tell yourself are the worst. Okay? Exactly. This is in relation to how I often find myself in trouble on the job, but it's usually related to principles and something ethical, um, and something that would require me to sell out in some meaningful way. And when I just cannot do that and I stand up for something, you know, get in trouble. It's not an easy road. So yeah, it says you stood for what you believed in. If you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. Exactly. Let's see. Thank you all so much for all your good comments. You all know I go watch the playback, so I see them all, even if I don't display them. Yes, ma'am. It says, you know, you're out of control before anyone else does. Oh, yes. Yes. Which is why, okay, we're getting deep. This is kind of a different topic, but we're an after show. So, like, part of the reason, so going back to the original question, why bother with evil at all? Is because you have to know how it operates, because just because you want to ignore it doesn't mean it's ignoring you. So in understanding that, you have to understand the predator-prey mindset. So part of the way the predators think is when they see that you either blindly trust them or that you make a lot of excuses for them or you make a lot of excuses for people, the predator is saying to themselves, I know I'm out of control, but he or she's going to let me get away with everything. So they know who they are. And when they see that you don't see that, they generally move in quickly too. Because they know they're out of control. They know they need help. Mm-hmm. Oh, yes. It says the world and society makes it very easy to sell your soul and inconvenient to protect it. Mm-hmm. Trying to protect your soul is one of the hardest things to do on this planet. I'm telling you, it's not easy. It's not easy at all. But it's worth it. Mm. Thank you. It says, I enjoy your voice, laugh, and your perspective, PTE. You know, when people get mad at me, one of the first things they attack is my voice. I just find that so interesting. There's comment proof, unless they've deleted it. But generally, when people get really good and pissed off with me, one of the first things they attack is my voice. And I'm like, really? I'm like, well, can you mute and just read the closed captions? Nope. It's funny to me. Let's see. Says they started having department meetings without me because I wouldn't stop trying to solve actual problems. Exactly. So you're trying to break the illusion, and you can't do that. These are people of the lie. You have to buy into the lie to succeed. And here's the whole thing about it. Here's one of the things I've been meditating on throughout this whole read was that lies are not good. And part of the reason, well, obviously, but one of the reasons lies are so bad is that they actually really eat you up also. So they're typically not something you can suppress them, but they start to manifest in other ways because essentially your mind, heart, and soul are actively trying to convince yourself of something that's not true. Like I feel like whatever you is, your soul, your mind, your essence, knows the perfect truth. You know, even, what am I trying to say? Like, I guess you could say instinctually sometimes. So, but what's worse is when you know a truth factually, no instinct needed, and you have to spend every day overriding that truth. I think that's where a lot of addiction comes from. I think a lot of addiction comes from people trying to actively override some truth every single day, every day. And that's why people rely so heavily like on cliches and things that, short circuit thought and critical thinking, because critical thinking generally leads you to the truth. And if that truth is uncomfortable, well, now you have to rely on your lie to feel better. But your body, mind, and soul will have no part of that. which is why a lot of people end up strung out on drugs and alcohol, or worse. You're overriding some lie, or excuse me, you're overriding some truth. What truth are you trying to override every single day? If you happen to stumble upon that truth that you've been trying to override every single day, and you find that you need someone to talk to about it who is licensed, you can contact betterhelp.com. They have done a partnership with my channel. And I do say that sincerely. When you finally arrive to whatever truth it is that you've been trying to override your whole entire life, you might need to talk that out with somebody. So you can do that. Now's the perfect time. Everyone's home. It's completely virtual or over the telephone. No in-person visits at all. The link is there on your screen. Okay. So let's get back into some of your comments here. We do need something pleasant. Maybe I will start a baking channel. Because here's where I am on the level of cooking. I can cook, but only with instructions. The only thing I can make without instructions is spaghetti, okay? Don't you judge me. I don't care. You can judge me. I don't care. But if you give me instructions, I can cook anything, okay? And very well, too. It's like I know what it's supposed to look like and taste like, but if you ask me to put it together without instructions, I can't do it. It's something I've been struggling with my whole life. It's just whatever. So I think it would be fun to watch me stumble through recipes. Watch me measuring things, mixing things like, oh man, I hope this is right, and seeing how it turns out. So we'll see. Baking with PTE, we'll see. Let's see. Or I might just have to relaunch my hair channel. We'll see. I had a hair channel at one point in time, you guys, on YouTube before PTE. And actually, I had PTE and the hair channel up for at the same time for about 3 months. And then I took the hair channel down because I was like, it's only a matter of time before someone stumbles on the hair channel and goes, oh my God, that's her. That's PTE. So I took the hair channel down. So I've been thinking about relaunching it though. So we'll see. We do need something pleasant. I'm telling you. And I'm hesitant in even saying these things because I don't want people who are either already parents or currently pregnant to feel bad about their choice and decision. I think it's beautiful. I actually love babies. Like I thought I'd have at least 3 or 4 of them by now because I love babies. I love to hold them and kiss on them and squeeze them and talk to them, like all that. Love children, right? So I don't want anyone to misinterpret. But again, I have to just speak from the heart and just speak my personal truth. And this is how I feel currently. And I started to feel this way about 10 years ago. I was like, I don't like how this is going. This whole direction doesn't really look promising. And it's only gotten worse with time. So if we don't start plucking these weeds now, because keep in mind, you know, for those of us who are going to live to be about 70 or 80 or even in our 90s, we're going to be here too. So even if I don't have children, if I live to be pretty old, that means I'm going to be here too. That means I'm stuck here the next 50 or 60 years too, man. We're talking about the kids. What about us? We're here too. So it's not only for the future generations, but we are the future generation that somebody didn't think about. Do you see what I mean? Like, yes, of course, credit to all of the people who've come before us and fought hard for what was right and stood up. And some people even lost their lives trying to stand up for what was right and fight for what was right. And we've had many successes, but we still have so many failures to fix. So I would never want to downplay the contributions of the past. But what I'm saying is, it seems like we went up like on a bell curve or like a roller coaster. And then now we're like on a sharp decline. And I feel like that sharp decline could have been prevented and it wasn't. So that's what I mean by somebody didn't think about us. Somebody didn't see the writing on the wall. Somebody didn't do the long math. You see? So I'm trying to do long math Because if I do end up having children, I want to be able to look them in the eye and say, Mommy tried slaying all the monsters before you got here. She tried. And if she sees one pop up here and there, she'll try to slay that one too. But Mommy tried to get rid of all the monsters before you got here because you were that important to me. Because y'all, I don't really trust myself in terms of like if somebody mess with my kid, like I think about if somebody mess with my pets, like I already have my getting arrested routine in place. Like I'm probably just going to actually shave all my hair off because who wants to try to maintain hair in jail, right? Shave all my hair off, shave everything else also because I'm probably going to be here a while and who wants to be a woolly mammoth, you know? Write down a couple of the most important passwords, put them in an envelope and seal it to go to my parents. Like, listen, I don't trust myself. You mess with my kid? Are you? I don't trust myself at all. So I need y'all, the monsters, to go so I don't have to go through my getting arrested routine when you mess with one of my children. Do you understand? So Mommy's trying to kill the monsters now, not when they're already here. Let's see here. See, that's deep. That's deep. But to me, you're doing long math. It says, I didn't have children because if I died, they'd be stuck with my narc family. Whew. That's deep. And that's long mathematics. You see? Exactly. It says, why study evil? Because when you understand it, you can make something to change it. Exactly. But until you understand it, you can't change it. You'll think it's not real. Like imagine how many things exist currently that we don't think are real or we don't understand fully. So we disregard them. And then maybe 20 years from now, we're going to find out that they were very, very real and then be able to learn all about whatever it was, you know? Like allegedly, we can only see a certain spectrum of colors, but apparently there's all kinds of other colors out there. We just can't see them. We know we can't see radio waves, but they exist. You see? So, you know? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Excuse me, I'm telling you, it says, I've said this 3 times today, same wavelength. It's too evil out here and the sheep are turning into savage heathens. I'm telling you guys, like, whew. I have never, ever considered owning a firearm before, and now I am strongly, like within the next couple of months. If you can find any, they're sold out all over the place. Wow. That's a strong enough reason to want one right there. They're sold out everywhere. So I'm like, man, it's getting a little too real around here. I don't know. I don't know what's going on. Well, yeah, I do. But it's just sad to me. Like I had such high expectations. And I feel like, never mind. That's so pessimistic. Let's move on. Let's see. So 2 Ezra 16:21, behold, victuals shall be so good, cheap upon earth, that they shall think themselves to be in good case. And even then shall evils grow upon earth, sword, famine, and great confusion. I don't know what victuals means. I want to look it up. Give me 1 second. Victuals definition. Oh, food. Food shall be so good and cheap upon the earth, they shall think themselves to be in good case, and even then shall evils grow upon earth, sword, famine, and great confusion. Right. So everyone thinks it's all good because you've carved out a nice little acre on Trash Island. Like, why do you want to live on Trash Island? Like, let's make it to where you don't have to live on Trash Island. The island can be clean and healthy. But, essentially what this verse is saying is that for a long time, we thought we were okay because everything was good. There's food everywhere. We got a little economy going. We got some healthcare up and propped up. So life must be okay, right? Nope. We never plucked those weeds. So evils grew. And now look. I think what we're learning as a society is that we cannot just ignore things and hope they go away. They grow into other things. They turn into other things. They morph and evolve. They don't just go away. It says, we're your kids, PT. Indeed. I have thousands of children. Hello, my children. How are you? How are my kids? Let's see. Someone mentioned, it says, and a little chemtrails and GMO, I think roses. Someone mentioned that during the real lockdowns, when everything was locked down for real, nothing was partially open. Did y'all notice we didn't really see any chemtrails in the sky? Anyone else notice that? And I saw my first one the other day, and I was like, what is up with this? Something is I know people have been talking about chemtrails for years, but I've got to find out what that's all about, because they were like none when we were locked down. So something's going on. I agree. It says People of the Lie is such a good and important book. I agree. Yes. All right. So it looks like we're getting kind of close. I agree. We have to find a way to eradicate evil without destroying humanity. Exactly. Which I think can be done. But the problem is, I believe evil was a surprise to God, because I don't know which verse it is, but it's talking about Lucifer, and it says that evil was found in him. So if evil was found there, it must have been hidden previously, right? So I think the Bible might even call evil a mystery. Or am I mixing that up with something else? But I know it does say evil was found in him. So I think it was a shock to God also. And God, I also have another theory. This might be more for a deeper PTE, but I'll drop it here. And that theory is that God can't destroy anything. God can only quarantine and separate things. So basically, once it's made, it's made. Now, that goes in line with the theory on physics that energy can't be created or destroyed. But what I'm saying is, I think one of the things that God discovered in the creation process was, whatever you make is here and can't be gotten rid of, can't get rid of it. So that creates a very unique problem. Imagine if you had the power to create anything, but anything you create lives forever, never goes away. So you can't get rid of it. So maybe that's why the universe is so big, because God was like, well, I can't get rid of you or it, whatever, but I can put you way over there. Just a thought. Just a thought. All right, let's see here. These are excellent comments, you guys. I can't wait to actually read them all. Which, by the way, if you go to look for the comments after the show is no longer live, it takes about 2 hours for them to show up for whatever reason. For whatever reason. So it really sucks, but it's just what it is right now. All right, I'm still going through your comments. Thank you all so much for being with me. Yeah, I agree. It says the 80s were hopeful, as were the 90s. I'm telling y'all, there was an energy on that time frame. And yes, I was young. I was a girl. So of course, the whole world looks beautiful when you're a child, for the most part, for some children. But I don't know, man. Like, I just thought we'd be like so evolved by now, you guys, like so far ahead right now. And we have gone backwards. Backwards. It says an angelic voice will always piss them off. I'm telling you, they go in for the attack. It's the first thing they go for when they get angry with me. But sometimes they will have been listening for months, viewers for months. Then I say one thing that's upsetting to them. They're like, I couldn't even finish this video because of your voice. I'm like, yeah. Well, you were listening to my voice for 3 months straight. So what happened? What happened? But there could be something to it, you guys. Like, sound can be a weapon, correct? Can't they? Doesn't the military have like sound weapons? I'm going to call them up. I'm going to say, listen, let's make each other a deal. Cut me a check, $2 million. I'll sit in the studio and just record. Just record myself saying whatever you want me to say to whoever your enemy is, and just play it on a loudspeaker. And I promise you, they'll just collapse. Let's see here. Oh, absolutely. It says they prefer to ignore the truth and listen to the lies instead. And this is part of why narcissists in particular are very prone to flattery. Because it's like people who either are not prone to flattery or can't be flattered, when they hear flattery, it does nothing for them. Nothing. You know, they're like, why is this person kissing my butt? You know, but narcissists love it. They're like, oh, tell me more. What? I am awesome, right? Yeah, I'm awesome. Yeah, tell me more. I thought I was great. And it's amazing how well it works, you guys. I'm telling you. Like, if you're in a very low stakes situation and you just need your narcissist to be on particularly good behavior that day, just compliment something. Just tell them something. Tell them their beard looks nice. Tell them their eyebrows look nice. Something. And I promise you, you'll put them in a good mood for at least 15 to 20 minutes. Let's see. And of course they do. It says people think people with morals are mean. Yeah, because people with morals, well, let me rephrase that. People think people with morals are mean because morals are often interpreted as boundaries, which they are in many ways. You know, to have a boundary, how dare you have a boundary with me? We see how they react to those. Let me see here. All right, you guys. There's a lot of comments. Oh, I love this so much. It's my favorite thing to do. I let them load and then I go like clean up and listen to it and read the comments as they come in. So, all right, you guys. I think I have gotten quite a few of the really, really good ones. I always try to find one now that we can end with. A good comment to end on. Let's see. All right. Well, I would like to thank you all for coming. It's been really great. This is our very first review series. I know it wasn't exactly long and we didn't dive very far into the content, but I promise you it's coming. I promise you we are getting ready to really spend some time. I don't think it'll take a year, but it could. We'll see. It depends on how long these other ones take us to do, but I'm going to try to shorten it. Thank you all so much. You can pick the book up on Amazon. Consider using the link in the description box. Help support the channel. I hope you enjoyed this chat. I will leave it open for just a few more minutes so you guys can finish your conversation, and I'll shut it down at like 9:05, okay? But we will be back soon with round 2 where we pick up on the case of Bobby and his parents. Whew. Man, some of these people are crazy. And with that, you guys have a great week and a good evening. I'll talk to you again soon. Bye.